Topic 4.5, volume of a right rectangular prism. Volume can be calculated by multiplying length times width times height, which first finds the area of the base, let's call it A, and then by multiplying it by the height, h. So the formula for volume can be summarized as A, h, where A is equal to the length times the width, which would give us the area of the base, and h, which would be the height of the rectangular prism. Or simply, volume is equal to length times width times height. In this case, the length is 3, the width is 2. So we would calculate the area of the base first. 3 times 2 would give us 6, and then we would multiply that by 5. So 6 times 5 is 30. Our volume for this rectangular prism is 30 cubic meters. Let's try a couple of examples. Now, the formula for volume is area of the base times the height, which can be rewritten as length times width times height. Okay, the length times width component determines the area of the base of this rectangular prism. So let's determine the area of this base and then multiply it by the height to find the volume. That would be 4, the length, times the width, which would be 3. And then we would multiply that by the height. So 4 times 3 is 12, and 12 times 5 is 60. And these would be cubic centimeters, 60 cubic centimeters. How about the next one? Now, in this one, we actually are not given the dimensions, so we have to first figure those out. So we've got a width of 3, a length of 6, and a height of 3. So using our volume formula, we would multiply the length times the width times the height, and that would give us 54. So the volume is 54. Now, assuming these are centimeters, that would be 54 cubic centimeters. Let's try one more example. Remember, our volume formula is the area of the base times the height, which is the same as saying length times width times height. So in this case, the length is 12, the width is 4, the height is 6. 12 times 4 is 48. 48 times 6 is 288 cubic centimeters. Topic 4.6, volume of a right triangular prism. Volume can be calculated by multiplying the area of the base by the height of the prism. Now remember, a prism is named for its base. So when we're dealing with a triangular prism, the bases of the prism are the triangles themselves. So you can express that formula as V is equal to AH, where A is equal to length times width divided by 2. This is the formula for the area of a triangle. Or simply, volume is equal to length times width divided by 2 times height. So to calculate the volume of this triangular prism, we would look at the dimensions of the triangle itself, which would be 8 and 3. We would calculate the area of the base, length times width divided by 2. So 8 times 3 divided by 2. 8 times 3 is 24, and 24 divided by 2 is 12. And then we would take that and multiply that by the height of the prism, which would be this dimension here, 7. 12 times 7 would be 84. So the volume of this prism is 84 cubic meters. Let's try a couple more examples. When trying to determine the volume of a right triangular prism, remember that the volume is equal to the area of the base times the height. Another way to look at that is to determine the area of a rectangular prism and then divided by 2, keeping in mind that the triangular prism is exactly half that of the rectangular prism, which is why this method actually works. Now, for this example, I'm going to show you just using the base area. So, in order to calculate the area of the base, which is a triangle, we need to find the base and the height, or the length and the width of that base, and we need to divide it by 2. So that would be 10 times 10 divided by 2, which would be 100 divided by 2, which is 50. And then we're going to multiply that by the height. Okay, so imagine this prism is tilted up on its base. The height would be this length here, 25 centimeters. So the volume would be 50, which is the area of the base, times 25, which is 1,250 cubic centimeters. Let's try another example. In this example, I'm going to show you the other way I was telling you about, which is to calculate the volume of a right rectangular prism and then divide it by 2. Essentially what you're doing is you're determining the volume of this space and then you're dividing it by 2 so that you're left with just the triangular prism part of it. So the length of this prism is 10. The width is 12. And the height is 16. I'm going to divide all of this by 2. Which is 960 cubic centimeters.